Hello everybody out there watching on YouTube, and welcome to race number 20 of Season 5 of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series. I'm Levi McIntyre, the voice of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series, here to welcome you to the Tropicana 20-minute endurance race here at Pensacola International Speedway, the road course this time, as opposed to what most people would use Pensacola for, which is the super speedway portion of the racetrack. Instead, we are using the road course. In fact, this will be the first of 3 straight road course races. Next week will be Inferno Pool, and then after that we're going to the Charlotte Roval, which should be interesting to see. But we're getting set for the Tropicana 20-minute endurance race. Sorry, I said 20-minute twice. I kind of jumbled in my thoughts there. But before we look at the starting lineup, let's take a look at the point standings and see how they come into today's race. So after last week at Kentucky, Joshua Collard's points lead extended to 22 points over Carson Gum. 3rd, Dylan Jacobs. 4th, Paul Minnick. 5th, Benjamin Miles. 6th, Sean Galligan. 7th, Dougie Shears. 8th, James McLeod. 9th, Dylan Young. And then 10th, Jake Rogers. As far as who was the big winner and loser in the points after Kentucky, the big winner in the points was Kyle Matthews, who moved up from 20th to 13th in points. Meanwhile, the big loser was Jonathan Zorlien, who fell from 14th to 25th in points. Still got plenty of time for some of them drivers to make some noise to try and get into this season's chase, because after this race, only 6 more races until the chase was to begin. But let's take a look at the starting lineup. Starting in the last row is Patrick Smith and Jonathan Zorlien. Top 10, Trent Dunham is on the pole for today. Starting next to him is Dylan Poteet. Row 2 is DJ Curtis, Dylan Jacobs. Row 3, James Shelley, Joshua Sekuli. Row 4, Emmanuel Hartnett, Dougie Shears. And then row 5, James McLeod and Carson Gum. Let's go ahead and get the command to fire engines for the Tropicana 20-minute endurance race at Pensacola.
Drivers, start your engines!
So momentarily on your screen you will see the 20-minute timer start. And by the time the timer expires, that'll be when the race is over. Or if they get all the laps finished before the timer expires, then that will be the end of the race as well. But this is a big unknown for a lot of drivers. None of these drivers have been to this racetrack before, the road course portion of it at least, here at Pensacola. But it should be an interesting race to say the least, because I got a feeling pit strategy is going to be a huge factor in this race here today, as we are waiting to get to the start-finish line, as it's taking them a little bit of time, as drivers are kind of getting a little stacked up right there trying to get in line. And the pace car is really far ahead, as I'm looking at the pace car to see in vicinity where the other drivers are. And yeah, the pace car is just driving away from the rest of the field. Yeah, really far out. As I'm going to keep my eye on the pace car here for a moment and see where is pit road going to start here at this racetrack. Is it going to be right around here? I don't know. Still a long ways off from every other driver in the field. And there they are, just coming out of this corner. There's pit road. So right there where them 2 white lines are is where pit road entrance is going to be. But ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get this race started. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to boogity go racing! Well, it was Trent Dunham who led the first lap and the first 2.5 minutes of this race. So yeah, 9 laps scheduled, but it's still under the 20-minute banner. And because I got a feeling pit stops are going to happen, we could see a lot of different aspects come into play. And actually, we got a new leader, DJ Curtis. Because they're on the super speedway part of the track, you could use the draft and work together to try to gain some ground and maybe make some moves that you probably couldn't do on the Roval portion of the track. So this is basically the Pensacola Roval race, as we should say it is. And we got a new leader, DJ Curtis, who took the lead from managing to gain ground on Trent Dunham on the super speedway, managed to get around him, and then by the time we get to the Roval portion, is now pulling away from Trent Dunham. Meanwhile, Trent Dunham's got some company behind him in the form of James Shelley, as Shelley is right on his back bumper. And actually, let's look at the speeds throughout the racetrack, in fact. Relatively fast for a road course track, I must say so myself, considering the speeds they're going in these corners. But I don't think anybody's wrecked out. I think all 40 drivers are still on the racetrack. But DJ Curtis, who coming into this race is 16th in points, and he has a win, but he's wanting to get a second win and hope it can increase his chances of getting back into the top 10 in points going into next week's road course spectacle, which will be first time ever Inferno Pool, which is going to be rather chaotic, to say the very least, as now the drivers are back onto the super speedway portion of the racetrack, and let's see how fast these drivers are going to be going now. Up to 190, they're about to reach 200 momentarily. And they've just hit 200. And DJ Curtis got to lead that lap. Let's look at that 3-car freight train behind them with Trent Dunham, James Shelley, and Emmanuel Hartnett. Although Shelley's going to break that up, I honestly thought they should have stayed together and they would have had a bigger run on DJ Curtis than what they're getting right now. And we could have seen a major battle for the race lead. While they did close in on the 4, we're now entering back into the Roval. Although Shelley, here comes Shelley, he's got a run. Actually, 5 cars have bunched up here at the front of the field to make it a bigger battle for the lead. But Shelley, with a big run, is going to clear DJ Curtis for the lead. So, second straight lap, we get a lead change as a result of the super speedway coming into play for drivers to work together in a draft to catch up to the leaders and manage to get some momentum going and go for a move. As we're 6 minutes into this race, still got less than 14 minutes to go. Still plenty of time for drivers to make some magic happen. And while James Shelley has the lead, he's not really pulling away. DJ Curtis is still lurking right there behind him. As I'm still looking around to double check and make sure nobody is wrecked, and still nobody's wrecked. Let's actually look at the rest of the leaderboard. Yeah, all 40 drivers still on the racetrack. So by far already, this has been one of the best road course races I've seen ever on this channel. And simply put, because it's the hybrid of the super speedway and the road course, because now we're entering back into the super speedway portion of the track where you're going to see drivers work together in a tandem or in a pack to try and work together to gain some ground on the front runners and see if they can make a pass for the lead before entering the road course portion of the racetrack again. Although they're coming in the pit road, so it looks like they're going to have to pit quite a few times in this race. And it looks like everybody's coming into pit road at the same time except Kyle Matthews stays out. So Matthews, Seth Cole stayed out. Rafael LeDuc stays out. It looks like only 3 drivers stayed out on the racetrack. LeDuc, Seth, and Matthews all stay out on the racetrack to try and gain some extra points. And yeah, slight buckle on the hood of Rafael LeDuc's car. Looks like he might have got into it with somebody. And he actually has some rear end damage too, but coming out of pit road, it looks like Shelley came out first, then DJ, then McLeod, Hartnett, and Carson Gum. So if they can cycle around those 3 who have yet to come into pit road, that'll be your top 5. And then Dollarton, Rogers, Yepez, and look at this bundle of cars trying to get into potentially a top 10. As things are getting really dicey. Meanwhile, Kyle Matthews hangs on to the race lead, but Seth Cole is actually approaching the 42, so we could see a battle for the lead here momentarily if Seth Cole can continue that run he's got going and catch up to the 42, especially if once we get to the super speedway part of the racetrack and get a bit of a draft off the 42 and then make a move. That or try and get around him before they have to go into pit road. Kyle Matthews hoping this strategy he's got going is going to pay off for him, because I think because everyone else pitted a lap before these guys, these 2 as well as LeDuc, then I've got a feeling that if everybody else has to come into pit road again going into lap 8, these 3 could potentially stretch out their fuel tanks and make it to the rest of the race just with 1 pit stop. So this could be genius on the part of Matthews, Cole, and LeDuc. And now they are coming into pit road. But what about LeDuc? Is he coming in? Yes, he is. But Kyle Matthews, he's going to get that, I think, yeah, he's going to get that bonus point for leading that lap. But let's go back here to James Shelley, who's scored in 4th right now. Still has a big gap between himself and DJ Curtis, and then it's sort of scattered, although then you got everyone else kind of in single file behind Carson Gum. Matthews and Seth Cole trying to get out of pit road in time, but no, they're going to get swiped out as now Shelley has taken the lead back. And now Matthews, Cole, and LeDuc are going to end up losing a ton of spots as a result. But they're hoping the strategy they've got plays out in their favor. If everyone else has to pit on lap 7 going into lap 8, then the 42, the 98, and the 77 could potentially make it the rest of the way by stretching out their tanks long enough to continue onward. But then again, you got to keep that timer in factor, as it's now under 9 minutes to go. And we just finished lap 4 and we're on lap 5, so I don't know. It's going to be complicated if we can't get the laps done before the timer runs out. And then it'll be really a factor of if these guys like Shelley and them can keep out there on the racetrack long enough to not have to go into pit road before the timer expires. Because, yeah, you got to keep in mind that 20-minute timer on the bottom left of your screen. But I'm thinking that after this season, we won't be doing the timers anymore. We'll just go back to just worrying all about laps instead of the timers. But nonetheless, James Shelley right now is your race leader. 2nd is James McLeod. 3rd, DJ Curtis. 4th, Emmanuel Hartnett. 5th, Carson Gum. 6th is Kyle Matthews. 7th, Jake Rogers. 8th, Chris Dollarton. 9th, Diego Yepez. 10th is Seth Cole. 11th is Dougie Shears. 12th, James Qualls. 13th, Zachary Fitzwater. 14th, Trent Dunham. 15th, Dylan Poteet. 16th, Joshua Sekuli. 17th, Jay Jefferson. 18th, Jessica Shelton. 19th, Cody Lamas. 20th, Paul Minnick. 21st, Dylan Jacobs. 22nd, is Alex Drayton. 23rd, Anthony McCurry. 24th, Colin Phillips. 25th, Joshua Collard. 26th is Dylan Thoreau. 27th, Benjamin Miles. 28th, Ethan Hoffman. 29th, Patrick Smith. 30th, Jake Baskinger. 31st, Jonathan Zorling. 32nd, Preston Plord. 33rd, Tim Fiegel. 34th, Charles Sanford. 35th is Colin Francis, and more cars coming into pit road sooner than I thought. Looking around, and none of the main front runners came into pit road. Only just a few cars came in. Drayton, Sanford, Galligan, Thoreau. That could be genius on their part, potentially, because that could mean that everyone else is going to have to pit a lot sooner than planned as well, and they could find themselves up at the front, potentially. Although that's a bit of a stretch because some of those guys were in the back of the field when they came in the pit road. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out as we are approaching 6 minutes left in this race. And when we come to the line here next time by, it will still be 3 laps to go. But I don't think they're going to be able to get the laps completed in time unless they somehow, by some miracle, as it's now 6 minutes left, get to lap 9 before the timer runs out. And then once they get to lap 9 and the timer runs out, they got to complete that lap. So some of these drivers are banking on trying to get to lap 9 and see where things go from there. There's Galligan, Sanford, Thoreau, and Drayton, who have just gone back out onto the racetrack. But unless some miracle happens for them, they may end up being 4 of the bottom 5 this week who will not get points. But James Shelley has been pretty much the dominant car all race long. Once he made that move going into turn 3, entering the road course portion of the racetrack after drafting up to DJ Curtis, managed to get around and has been able to maintain himself ever since. But is he coming into pit road this time? Yes, he is. Everybody looks like, for the most part, is coming into pit road this time. And we got under 5 minutes left, and they're approaching 3 laps to go. Matthews, Dougie Shears is going to stay out, so I expected... And there's Seth Cole, he's staying out, as expected. And LeDuc staying out as expected. So Dougie Shears is going to try and go along with the plan of Matthews, Seth Cole, and Rafael LeDuc. And actually, Dougie Shears is the race leader right now, and he's wanting to go for his 3rd win this season. Less than 3 laps to go, but we're approaching 4 minutes left. It is going to be very, very close if these drivers can make it to lap 9 before the timer runs out. Or if the timer runs out before they get to lap 9, then the lap they had completed, which would be lap 8, would be the final lap. So things are going to get really, really confusing scoring-wise if that ends up being the case. Less than 4 minutes to go. Shears has the lead, but just by a slim margin over Kyle Matthews, as Matthews trying to figure out how to get around the 83. He's going to have to hope that when we get to the super speedway part of the racetrack, try and get to the gas better than the 83 and run him down with the draft, and then break the draft up and use side draft to go by the 83 for the lead. As we are approaching 3 minutes left in this race. Like I said, it is going to be very, very, very close. 3 minutes more, 3-minute warning. Hey, where's the music when you need it? But right now, Dougie Shears has that spot. And now they are entering back into the super speedway part of the racetrack. And I estimate about 10 more seconds before they cross the line, and then it would be pretty much the final lap, which would be lap 8 going into lap 9. And yeah, in fact, the timer will expire before they even get to lap 9, so time's running short for some of these drivers to try and make something stick for them. But Shears, Matthews coming in. What about Seth Cole? Is he coming in? Yes, he is, but what about Rafael LeDuc? Is he going to try and risk it? No, he's coming in. As we are approaching 2 minutes left. And actually, we got one car on pit road, Matt McIntyre, damaged. So it looks like he got into it with somebody on the racetrack. Tim Fiegel's gotten major front-end damage to his race car, so maybe Charles Sanford. Yes, Sanford with damage, so there was a little incident that took place. And James Shelley right now has the race lead and is more likely going to be your winner. Because we only got a minute and a half left in this race, and by the time they get to the start-finish line to enter lap number 9, the race will be over and the timer will be expired. So right now, James Shelley, all he's got to do is just stay on the racetrack and not get loose and wreck, and he's pretty much good to go to win this race. Time running out on that timer down there. And Shelley has the spot right now. A minute is left in this race. We only got 1 minute before the timer expires, and then once the timer expires, drivers have to complete the lap that they were on, which is lap 8. And then once everybody crosses the line at the end of lap 8 will be the end of this race. So they were 1 lap short of finishing off this race without worrying about the timer. But right now, James Shelley is in the catbird seat to win this race. And he's been, like I said, he's been the dominant car pretty much all race long. There's McIntyre still stuck on pit road as a result of a wreck that occurred. Seth Cole's actually got damage. He could have been a top 10 finisher had it not been for something that happened. And we're down to 2 seconds. 1. And the timer has expired. So now we're coming to the start-finish line, or coming to the finish line whenever everyone gets around here. So once after Ryan Butcher crosses the start-finish line, now will be when we do the final exports to get the final results. But James Shelley is pretty much scot-free to win his first race of the season, I believe. Checkered flag waving. James Shelley is going to win the Tropicana 20-minute endurance race at Pensacola International Speedway. So now we wait for everyone else to cross the start-finish line. And it's going to end off actually with, with Ryan Butcher. It's going to end with Ryan Butcher getting across the start-finish line, and then the results will be concluded. And he's crossing the line here in just a moment, and then once that happens, the race is official. And he's crossed it, so the results are officialized now. So, let's go back and take a look at the top 10 final results. So, James Shelley gets his first win of the season, and he wins the Tropicana 20-minute endurance race here at Pensacola, which is really going to help him build some confidence going forward here in the next few weeks, as we still got more road course action coming soon. James McLeod came through with a great run in the second spot. That's definitely going to help him move higher up in the point standings in order to get a bigger gap between himself and that 11th spot in points. Carson Gum definitely wanted to get a good finish to gain ground on the points lead, and he finishes out in 3rd. Emmanuel Hardenow, great run in 4th, and then DJ Curtis, man, look at that interval, 6.666. DJ Curtis is Satan, confirmed. Finishes out in 5th. Jake Rogers, didn't talk about him pretty much at all, and he finished out in 6th. Highest finishing rookie, Diego Yepes, in 7th. Kyle Matthews, while he was hoping to win the race on the strategy he was on, he still finishes strong in the top 10 in 8th. Cody Lamas with a solid run in 9th, and then Dougie Shears continuing his momentum and gets a top 10. Then there's the rest of your top 20, and then your top 30, and then you actually ended up with one car out of the race, and that was Tim Fiegel. And then a car a lap down, still on pit road, Matt McIntyre. So yeah, there was an incident between Fiegel, Sanford, and McIntyre, because all three of those cars were pretty heavily damaged. Seth Cole sustained damage in some capacity early on, and the bottom five were actually Dylan Young, Ryan Butcher, Tim Fiegel, Charles Sanford, and Matt McIntyre. So, with that said, thank you guys for watching. Here are your final results. Rookie points and regular points heading into next week, which is Inferno Pool. This is Levi McIntyre, signing off.